Welcome to the off season. We've got plenty to talk about until week one. A lot of news, rumors, speculation to break down on the show. So we're going to get to all of it, including whether or not the Browns are going to add a superstar wide receiver, whether or not it's an actual possibility Deshaun Watson gets traded. And yes, I am unfortunately wearing a Texans jersey. It does not take the mystery machine to realize I made a bet with our Texans host, and obviously that did not go very well. So we're going to break it all down on today's show. It is currently halftime, by the way, of the Steelers-Bills game. So if I start laughing, it's because Mason Rudolph threw another interception in the red zone. But let's jump into the first segment, which is ESPN Cleveland put out this clip, and a lot of you guys sent it to me and thought or asked for my thoughts on it. And so I want to break it down. Tony Rizzo said, "I'm almost going to guarantee that some big-name wide receiver is coming to Cleveland." So I listened to the full clip, and the full clip does not do it, or the tweet does not do the full clip justice, because the full clip has a very important first sentence, which I think is worth sharing. So let's share and unpack this entire little audio clip from Tony Rizzo at ESPN Cleveland. So if you're not going to bring back Amari Cooper, I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say the Browns' big offensive move this offseason is to go get a number 1 or 1A type of wide receiver. And I think they might be able to trade for one. But I'm also going to guarantee that some big name wide receiver is coming to Cleveland. So a big if there to begin that sentence, which was if Amari Cooper does not return in 2024. And I don't think it's 100% guarantee that Coop comes back, but it's pretty darn close to it. Now, the Browns are currently in the red for the 2024 NFL salary cap, but they can easily get back in the green by restructuring a couple contracts, which we're going to talk about later on in the offseason. Restructure does not mean the player agrees to less money. It just means you take their prorated or take their signing bonus and prorate it for the rest of the contract and lower their cap hit for this year and raise future cap hits. So let's look at whether or not the Browns could move on from Amari Cooper to save some money. If they release him before June 1, well, his 2024 cap hit at $23.7 million would go down in half pretty much. 2024 dead cap hit of $11.3 million and a 2024 cap savings of $12.4 million. So the Browns could save about half of that money if they were to move on from him before June 1. If the Browns wanted to move on from him after June 1 with that post-June 1 designation, where you cut the dead money in half and split it over 2 years, 2024 dead cap hit, very low, $3.7 million, and a 2025 dead cap hit of $7.5 million, and $20 million in cap savings. If Amari Cooper was some big bust this season, I could see the Browns doing this. But the fact is, he was not a big bust this year. You could make an argument it was Amari Cooper's best season in the NFL at the age of 29. You did not see enough from Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, or David Bell to make yourself comfortable with the idea of removing Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was the entire wide receiver room this year. There is just no way the Browns can move on from their top guy without seeing enough from the rest of the receiver room to believe, hey, I know Coop just had a great year, but we're going to go the Patriots way, and it's better to move on from a guy a year too early than hold on to him for a year too long. No, that does not apply in this situation here. The rest of the wide receiver room is far too young and inexperienced and simply not productive enough to wrap your mind around the idea of let's move on from Coop. I know he just led us in every single category possible as a wide receiver, but surely we saw enough from David Bell, Tillman, and Moore to go, we believe in those guys without Amari Cooper. Not happening. So if anything, if the Browns want to lower his cap hit, I don't think they're going to move on from Amari Cooper. I think they are going to extend Amari Cooper. What about a 3-year, $60 million contract extension? It's identical to what he's getting paid on average right now. Remember, he signed that 5-year, $100 million deal with Dallas. How about Cleveland goes, you're still playing at the same level. Now, you're older than when the Cowboys gave you that 5-year deal. So how about we lock you down for 3 seasons for $60 million? That's $20 million a season. Guaranteed 2/3 of it. So basically, it's a 2-year, $40 million contract. And if he really starts to fall off after 2 years, the Browns can move on before year 3 with very little dead cap money. So let me know, would you extend Amari Cooper? Yes or no? Do you feel like Amari Cooper still has some good gas left in the tank? Or do you feel like, hey, he's going to turn 30 this offseason, get out while you can, and don't attach yourself to him for another 2-3 seasons? If you have some concerns over extending Amari Cooper because he is hitting that very scary 30-year-old benchmark, let me share with you guys some players that had really good seasons after the age of 30. So, since 2010, there have been 37 wide receivers with over 1,000 yards that are over the age of 30. Andre Johnson put up nearly 1,600 yards back in 2012 for the Texans at 31. Most recently, Davante Adams, just like Amari Cooper, 1,500 yards, 30 years old. Brandon Marshall in the first year with the Jets, he had 1,500 yards. So we're not asking for a miracle here. There is a long track record, and this is only going back 13 seasons, by the way, of players over the age of 30 and still being very productive. So I can sell myself on Amari Cooper, a player that up until the last 2 weeks of the season was extremely healthy in his career. I mean, he did not miss a game due to injury up until this season since 2017. And it had been a long time since Amari Cooper missed a game due to injury up until the final 2 weeks of the year. So I can buy into Amari Cooper being available, which when you get over 30 years old, that's not always a guarantee for NFL players, and still being productive. Because did anyone think Amari Cooper this year looked like he was slowing down? Absolutely not. Now, we're going to talk about some free agent, big-name receivers the Browns could target to pair with Amari Cooper. But really quickly, I want to highlight our sponsor today, which is Factor. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you are ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Need a special occasion meal? Gourmet Plus is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, upscale options done easily. Head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BrownsChat50 at factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. Now, I can get my head around the Browns adding another big-name receiver. Will it be a big-name receiver? Probably not. I think people might be a little bit disappointed on that front. But I could see the Browns maybe targeting some of these guys in free agency, at least kicking the tires on them. Like Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a big-body jump ball type of receiver. Deshaun Watson loves throwing the jump balls up there. That's why him and DeAndre Hopkins were so successful in Houston. T. Higgins is an interesting name to keep an eye on. My prediction is we see T. Higgins, like Davante Adams, get a tag and trade and then sign a new contract with the team so Cincinnati gets something out of Higgins. Michael Pittman's probably going back to the Colts. I think Calvin Ridley will stay in Jacksonville. I think Marquise Brown will stay in Arizona. Now, what about trading for a guy? Brandon Ayuk I tossed on there. The Niners are going to have to start feeding some of these amounts, right? They've got Brock Purdy on his rookie contract still. They've got some bills to pay soon. Maybe they decide to move on from Ayuk and sell high, especially if they win a Super Bowl this upcoming February. Keenan Allen's getting really old. Maybe the Chargers decide with a new GM to go a different direction. I could see the Davante Adams trade maybe happening if the Raiders with a new GM decide, let's get something for him. Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy trade rumors just refuse to quit. I think Jeudy is much more likely to get traded than Sutton, although Courtland Sutton just had a monster season for the Broncos in the touchdown department. So those are two names to continue to monitor all offseason. If I'm picking a receiver to go after, it's not a number one, and it's probably not even a 1A guy, but it's going to be a lot cheaper than those players. How about Darnell Mooney, a former 1,000-yard receiver for the Chicago Bears? They're DPJ, if you will, in some ways, like a day 3 pick that didn't have huge expectations and really emerged on the scene his first 2 years in Chicago. Because of COVID, he kind of went unnoticed coming out of Tulane. And then he balled out with the Bears. And then this year, the Bears offense was inconsistent. DJ Moore became the wide receiver one. Colt Kmet became the second option. And Mooney kind of fell off a little bit, which might be advantageous for the Browns because they could get him for a lot cheaper. And he brings some much-needed speed, right? The Browns were hoping to get that out of Jakeem Grant and Marquise Goodwin. Those guys combined for like 4 grabs all year. And Jakeem Grant didn't even play a snap. So Darnell Mooney could be a much cheaper and effective and productive option to replace Goodwin and Jakeem Grant. Now, next up on the show, we're going to talk about a really silly, I don't even want to call it a rumor necessarily, but a silly idea, I guess the way to put it, from ESPN about trading Deshaun Watson. Because ESPN did a full breakdown on all the teams no longer in the playoffs and what they could be doing this offseason. And so I looked at the Browns, and this part jumped out to me here. Bill Barnwell from ESPN wrote, "The Browns can't undo the trade, but would Flacco's success lead them to give up on Watson? He is owed $138 million over the next 3 seasons, all of which is guaranteed. But the structure of his contract would make him movable. The Browns can't cut him. But if they found a trade partner, they would owe $62.9 million in dead money, which is essentially what they'll owe for him to be on the roster next season." I'll tell Bill right now, there is a 0% chance Deshaun Watson gets traded this offseason. Kevin Stefanski, speaking to the media after the game, talked about a coach that was really, or following the game on the exit interviews on Sunday or Monday, whatever it was, talked about how excited he was to have Deshaun Watson come back, a guy who's been working his tail off, rehabbing to get his shoulder back to 100%. Deshaun Watson is not getting traded. There's just no other way to put it. Now, Deshaun Watson this season did have an interesting year because the record looks like a QB that's going to be a superstar QB, right? Went 5-1. Well, we can all at least acknowledge that he's probably not very responsible for the win against the Indianapolis Colts. He only played the first quarter and not really even the whole first quarter. But there were some really good moments, like the second half against the Ravens, which led us to believe Watson had really started to not just turn a corner, but really start stacking good games after good games. I think 2025 for Watson is likely boom or bust. Keyword is likely. I'm not going to say it is boom or bust because Deshaun Watson could have an average season that probably isn't worth what they gave up to get him. And the Browns are not going to move on from him still because they owe him a ton of money. And they're probably not going to find a better option out there if Watson does not blow them away in 2020. I think 2025, 2024 is a boom or bust season, likely a boom or bust season for Deshaun Watson. So I don't think all the eggs are in the basket for Deshaun Watson coming up this season. So I understand that it might feel like it's going to hit a boiling point if he does not start bringing home playoff wins. But the reality is, the Browns are going to be stuck to him at least for all 4 of his 5 years. And I don't say that as a bad thing. That's just acknowledging the fact that you paid him a lot of money. Jimmy Haslam's going to want to see that money on the field. Now, what's your confidence level in Deshaun Watson for 2024? Scale it 1 to 10. Get in the comment section right now and let me know how confident you are in Watson this upcoming season. Bouncing back is probably not even the right word. Just getting back on track after a very rocky first 2 years in Cleveland. One thing that does catch my attention with Watson is the very, very different numbers between his first half numbers and his second half numbers in this season. Like, first half in 2023, he's completing half of his passes, 533 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a very low QB rating. In the second half, he's completing nearly 80% of his passes, 562 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and essentially doubling his rating. Now, this is not just true for Deshaun Watson in 2023. Deshaun Watson in his career, if you take a step back, he's always gotten off to slow starts, whether it's at the beginning of the season or at the start of games, right? Games 1 through 4 in Deshaun Watson's career, 30 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 7-12 record. Compared to games 5 through 8, where he played fewer games, 43 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and a 12-5 record. Kevin Stefanski has to find a way to unlock first half Deshaun Watson and first quarter of the season Deshaun Watson. Because, newsflash, the AFC, it ain't getting any easier. The Texans just joined the club of another team that teams are going to have a big plan for, because we saw C.J. Stroud is not a quarterback to sleep on. So if you thought the AFC was going to get any easier, it ain't, which means you can't sleepwalk the first quarter of the year. The Cincinnati Bengals this year sleptwalk the first quarter of the season. They finished 9-8, and they still missed the playoffs. It's just that close. The margins for error are so razor thin that if you have a bad first half, or if you have a bad first couple of weeks, you might be done. Now, one thing that I do want Kevin Stefanski to learn from the successes he had with Joe Flacco and apply that to Deshaun Watson is look at the differences in snap percentages from under center. Deshaun Watson in 2023, 19% of his snaps under center. Joe Flacco, 9% higher at 28%. There is a major phobia across the National Football League of going under center. I can't really put my finger on as to why that is the case, but no one wants to do it anymore. But with Joe Flacco, a veteran QB, he wasn't afraid to, get to know his center a little bit better and get down under. And it worked out pretty well for him, don't you think? And it wasn't just that, by the way. Play action passes. Deshaun Watson took 20% of his pass attempts were play action. Joe Flacco, 10 points higher, 30%. The Browns had so much success in the play action, and it's not like Joe Flacco was even doing all that great of a job with selling the run, but he was sticking his hand out there, and then he was finding Amari Cooper or David Njoku down the field. Let's get that going with Deshaun Watson. Now, before we sign off and get on out of here, I do want to give 2 quick shout-outs to some of you guys that sent in some extra love to the channel. Ken Guard with a Venmo during our watch party on Saturday. Ken, thank you so much, man. I cannot tell you enough how awesome you are and how much you mean to this channel. Ken G in the chat right now. And then Kevin Spencer also sent in a super thanks. So, Kevin, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Really appreciate you. Go Browns, dude. Good news, bad news. Bad news is the Browns are out of the playoffs. Good news is off-season mode means pick a card time, baby.
Pick a card, any card.
You are joining us for the first time and you join the channel in the middle of the season. What we do in the offseason to keep things a little bit more just entertaining, because let's be honest, the offseason can be a bit dry at times, is we do something that's very similar to how Part of My Take ends their episodes. We do a random pick a card. And I've got a deck of cards right here, And so 1 in a 52 chance of getting the card correctly. We've got producer Sam Brown and the newest member of the Chat Sports team, Cullen Brown. So, Cullen, which card do you want to pick? You got a 1 in 52 chance.
1 in 52.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the 5 of spades.
5 of spades. Can the new guy get it right on his first pick? Sam?
I'm going to go with the card I went with so many times last season and hit was when I was not in the room. 9 of hearts.
So you got 5 of spades, 9 of hearts. For Deshaun Watson, bounce back year, I will go with a 4 of diamonds. You ready? And by the way, you're more than welcome to go in the chat right now and type your prediction.
Don't cheat.
Not even fucking close. Queen of spades. Queen of spades.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere. That's going to do it for us. Welcome back to off-season mode. It's going to be a fun off-season. I sure hope so. Make sure to subscribe, follow along, and we'll see you all later.